world as a source of hope. And perhaps it was out of this intimate knowledge of hardship, grounding faith in struggle, that the church offered me a second insight, one that I think is important to emphasize today, that faith doesn't mean that you don't have doubts. You know, you come to church precisely because you are of this world, not apart from it. You need to embrace Christ precisely because you have sins to wash away, because you're human and need an ally in this difficult journey. And it was because of these newfound understandings that I was finally able to walk down the aisle of Trinity United Church of Christ on 95th Street in the south side of Chicago one day and affirm my faith. And it came about as a choice, not as an epiphany. I didn't fall out in church. Questions I had didn't magically disappear. But kneeling beneath that cross on the south side, I felt that I heard God's Spirit beckoning me. I submitted myself to His will and dedicated myself to discovering His truth. And that's a path that has been shared by millions of Americans, evangelicals, Catholics, Protestants, Jews, Muslims, some since birth, others at certain turning points in their lives. It's not something that sets them apart from the rest of their beliefs or their values. In fact, it's often what drives their beliefs and their values. And that's why, if we truly hope to speak to people where they're at, to communicate our hopes and values in a way that's relevant to their own, then progressives, we cannot abandon the field of religious discourse. Because when we ignore the debate about what it means to be a good Christian or Muslim or Jew, when we discuss religion only in the negative sense of where or how it should not be practiced, rather than in the positive sense in terms of what it tells us about our obligations towards one another, when we shy away from religious venues and religious broadcasts because we assume that we will be unwelcome, others will fill that vacuum. Those with the most insular views of faith, or those who cynically use religion to justify partisan ends. In other words, if we don't reach out to evangelical Christians and other religious Americans and tell them what we stand for, then Jerry Falwell's and Pat Robertson's and Alan Keyes's views will continue to hold sway. More fundamentally, the discomfort of some progressives with any hint of religion has often prevented us from effectively addressing issues in moral terms. Some of the problem here is rhetorical. If we scrub language of all religious content, we forfeit the imagery and terminology through which millions of Americans understand both their personal morality and social justice. Imagine Lincoln's second inaugural address without references to the judgments of the Lord, or King's I Have a Dream speech without references to all God's children. Their summoning of a higher truth helped inspire what had seemed impossible, move the nation to embrace a common destiny. So our failure as progressives to tap into the moral underpinnings of the nation is not just rhetorical, though. Our fear of getting preachy may also lead us to discount the role that values and culture play in some of our most urgent social problems. After all, the problem of poverty and racism, the uninsured and the unemployed, all the problems that are chronicled in this pamphlet, are not simply technical problems in search of the perfect 10-point plan. They're rooted in both societal indifference and individual callousness. They're rooted in the imperfections of man. And solving these problems will require changes in government policy, but it will also require a change in hearts and a change in minds. I believe in keeping guns off the streets of the inner city, and that our leaders must say so in the face of the gun manufacturers' lobby. But I also believe that when a gangbanger shoots indiscriminately into a crowd because he feels somebody's disrespected him, we've got a moral problem. There's a hole in that young man's heart, and a hole that the government alone cannot fix. I believe in vigorous enforcement of our non-discrimination laws, but I also believe a transformation of conscience and a genuine commitment to diversity on the part of the nation's CEOs could bring about quicker results than a battalion of lawyers. They got more lawyers than we do. I think we should put more of our tax dollars into educating our poor girls and boys. I think that the work that Marian Wright Edelman has done all her life is absolutely how we should prioritize our resources in the wealthiest nation on earth. I also think that we should give them information about contraception that can prevent unwanted pregnancies and lower abortion rates and help assure that every child is loved and cherished. But you know, my Bible tells me that if we train a child in the way he should go, when he is old, he will not turn from it. So I think faith and guidance can help fortify a young woman's sense of self and a young man's sense of responsibility and a sense of reverence that all